carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer.
What he didn't tell you is that temperatures rise and fall first. CO2 levels follow. The climate crisis bashers want you to believe it's the other way round. That CO2 levels go up first and that temperatures go up immediately as a result. You don't believe us? Then listen to real experts, like for instance Professor Ian Clark, geologist and Arctic paleoclimatologist.
Here we're looking at the ice core record from Vostok, and in the red we see temperature going up from early time to later time at a very key interval when we came out of a glaciation. And we see the temperature going up, and then we see the CO2 coming up. CO2 lags behind that increase. It's got an 800-year lag, so temperature is leading CO2 by 800 years.
At MIT, Harvard University, University of London, Senior Visiting Fellow in Mathematics and Physics, University of Cambridge, author of 4 major textbooks on oceanography.
The ocean is the major reservoir into which carbon dioxide goes when it comes out of the atmosphere, or from which it is re-emitted to the atmosphere. If you heat the surface of the ocean, it tends to emit carbon dioxide. So similarly, if you cool the ocean surface, the ocean can dissolve more carbon dioxide.
The warmer the oceans, the more CO2 they release. The cooler the oceans, the more CO2 they absorb. So, back to the time lag of 800 years between changes in temperature and changes in CO2 levels. Where does that time lag come from? Oceans are massive. They are so massive it literally takes hundreds of years for them to warm up or cool down.
If somebody says, oh, I'm seeing changes in the North Atlantic, this must mean that the climate system is changing. It may only mean that something happened in a remote part of the ocean decades or hundreds of years ago, whose effects are now beginning to show up in the North Atlantic.
Model the greenhouse to achieve these temperatures. Well, CO2 is a very minor constituent of the atmosphere. The strongest, by far, is water vapor. And so water vapor is used in these models to drive climate warming. The model is based on a little bit of CO2 warming, which would be insignificant, is amplified by water vapor, a 2 to 4 time water vapor feedback. And this feedback effect has never been documented, it's never been seen in the geological record, and so it remains an hypothesis.
It should be based on careful observations of nature. You must try hard and recognize what I will call an elephant in the room hiding in plain sight. I found an elephant in the room regarding climate change. I believe that the climate change is not a crisis. The current world is literally awash, saturated with pseudoscience, with bad science, with scientific misinformation and disinformation for opportunistic purposes. Because, in my opinion, the IPCC is one of the worst sources of dangerous misinformation. I can confidently say there is no real climate crisis and that climate change does not cause extreme weather events. Thank you.
The conclusion in both of these papers is that our theories about global warming are completely wrong. If you measure the temperature of the atmosphere, it isn't going up. It's not going up at all. We've been doing it very carefully now for 20 years from satellites, and it isn't going up. The place didn't get warmer, so the theory's kaput. These papers should have been called The End to the Global Warming Fiasco.
It's always been changing, but this has nothing to do with man.
A minute, you say this isn't caused by man. How come they're reporting this heat wave is recognised as the worst in 1,000 years of recorded history in Russia? And surely
of course,
man has got something to do with this, hasn't he?
No, nothing to do with it. The only connection is man is here at the same time as the sun and the moon are doing things.
Dr. Corbyn refers to the fact that the climate is a very complex system with a lot of elements that influence the outcome. Solar activity, the phases of the moon, the Earth's tilt, its elliptical orbit around the sun, ocean circulations, changes in salinity, cloud amount, and much more.
These things are dictated by solar activity in the moon. They're nothing to do with mankind, and those who say that are just trying to make money out of it.
Well, how come then so many climate change scientists disagree with you and they get so much support for what they say?
They're on a gravy train, for heaven's sake, they're mate.
The government puts out about $2.5 billion directly for climate research every year. It only gives that money to scientists who will produce scientific results that support the global warming hypothesis of the Democrat Party. So they don't have any choice. If you're going to get the money, you got to support their position. Therefore, 97% of the scientific reports published support global warming. Why? Because those are the ones the government pays for, and that's where the money is. It's real simple, but that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't make it true. If you get down to the hard, cold facts, there's no question about it. There is no significant man-made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there's no reason to expect any in the future.
One of my missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet. Scientific method has not been applied in such a way as to prove that carbon dioxide is causing the Earth to warm. If we had definitive proof that CO2 was causing serious problems, don't you think they would write that down on a piece of paper somewhere so people could read it? They don't have definitive proof, period.
In 2009, Mr. Peña and his wife were in a research facility in Antarctica. The scientists gave presentations about climate change. They had drilled thousands of ice cores by which they can tell you the temperatures at any given time, and had brought about a dozen to this presentation.
So they're going through the second or third core, and they said 275,000 years ago this was the temperature, blah, 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 blah. And then 55,000 years ago the world was 2 degrees warmer Celsius than it is today. And I said, well, you mean the whole world? He says, yes. And the poles are only benchmarks. And he said, it's all cyclical.
Mr. Peña then points out something interesting.
The best scenario vis-a-vis global warming is about 10 feet raise in water. If the water on the planet is going to rise up 10 feet, that means the southern part of the United States is gone. England is gone. Most of Europe is gone. Most of Central America is gone. If it were really true, the banks wouldn't invest. The banks wouldn't finance. Not one motherfucking condominium. The financial institutions, the banks of this world know it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you couldn't get a goddamn loan in London. You know those 30, 40-year mortgages? The world will be over by then. It's the greatest fraud that's been perpetrated on mankind this century.
The man has a point. If the climate emergency were true, would the cabal buy mansions by the sea?
Announced in her office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and like that's going to be our next focus. Like our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I have a feeling it's just going to be like constantly showing videos of like decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy, and really talking
Who decides that?
Head of the network.
Zucker?
Yeah.
So that's like the next
pandemic like story like that will beat to death.
So climate change overload.
Be prepared, it's coming.
In the 10 years that we have left to us,
the world is going to end in 12 years.
9 years.
There will be no future underwater.
The science is clear.
In the 10 years that we have left to us,
I can't imagine there will be a human on the planet in 10 years.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Many scientists are in the UN's pocket.
You know, we own the science and we think that the world, should know it.
Glad to hear some cabal puppets are honest people. She adds that the UN also controls social media and that they're doing their utmost best to remove disinformation about the climate at all times.
We partnered with Google, for example. If you Google climate change, you will, at the top of your search, you will get all kinds of UN resources. We started this partnership when we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top.